Tonight on Steelers Talk, the Steelers have worked out a former top 10 draft pick in the south side of Pittsburgh earlier today. I'll let you guys know who that is at the top of today's program. Then we'll talk about Treylon Burks, who was recently released by the Tennessee Titans. Should the Pittsburgh Steelers consider bringing him in? Then we'll get into our final topic today, which is how I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to deploy their many tight ends versus the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. So make sure you guys stick around for that. But before we get into our content today, speaking of the Browns, right now the Browns Report is currently in the lead for our new subscriber battle this week between us and our Browns channel here at Chat Sports. The Browns Report, they have currently gotten 266 new subscribers this week. We've done a good job with 239 new subscribers, but we are still behind. So if you're a new viewer, you guys have been watching the channel for a while, and you guys like our content, make sure you guys click that subscribe button to help us beat the Browns here this week. We have never lost a sub battle versus the Browns Report. I do not intend to start a streak now and to end our winning streak here. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, if you want to beat the Browns. All right, so a little bit of news here. The Pittsburgh Steelers have signed linebacker Jacoby Windman to the practice squad. Windman was with the Pittsburgh Steelers before. He's known as kind of like an athletic, physical linebacker, formerly played for Michigan State in college. So bringing him back to the practice squad after the team released Ja'Whaun Bentley earlier this week. And the Steelers are not stopping there. They have brought in two other linebackers for workouts today, Michael Barrett and then also Isaiah Simmons. And Simmons, of course, is a former top 10 draft pick for the Arizona Cardinals back in 2020. And guys, I've been intrigued by Isaiah Simmons for years. I have suggested that the Pittsburgh Steelers bring in Simmons on a veteran minimum contract to play kind of a big nickel type of positional role for many years now. I think in every single perfect offseason plan I've ever put out, I have the Steelers bringing in Isaiah Simmons to play a specialized role in this defense as kind of a defensive chess piece. And you guys can take a look at Simmons' profile. He's 27 years old. He brings good size to the table, 6'4", 238 pounds for somebody that I would consider more of a DB than a true linebacker. But, you know, he was the 8th overall pick out of Clemson in 2020. A lot of people were very intrigued by the possibilities and the potential of a guy with the physical skill set that Isaiah Simmons brings to the table. And he's known as an athletic, versatile defensive chess piece. And he was with the Green Bay Packers earlier this year in training camp, and he ended up getting cut from the Green Bay Packers. He formerly played with the New York Giants for a couple of seasons before that. And I think where the Packers went wrong with Isaiah Simmons is he is a highly specialized player, and you have to use him in a certain way, I think, because he's got very big weaknesses in his game. He can't tackle. He can't diagnose the run. He's not fantastic, moving backwards in zone coverage either. He has to play kind of an aggressive style. He's pretty good in man coverage, especially against tight ends. He can erase tight ends in man. He's a pretty decent blitzer. Obviously he brings an incredible athletic profile. So the highs on Isaiah Simmons' film are awesome, but there are way too many lows on his film to be a full-time player. I think he has to be a highly specialized kind of like dime backer, big nickel type, and I would love to see him in kind of like a blitzing kind of slot corner type of role. I've always wanted to see what he would look like as kind of like a bigger nickel type of slot player that can be a threat to blitz off the edge, because he's got some I think that's what he's done best throughout his career. So I would love to see the Pittsburgh Steelers use him as a dime backer. He's listed as a linebacker / safety, so he played a little bit of safety for New York over the last few years, and he just wasn't consistent enough to be a full-time player in that defense. And of course they end up letting him go this offseason. Green Bay picks him up, and Jeff Hafley, their defensive coordinator, tried to turn him into a full-time linebacker, and they kind of made the same mistake that Arizona made, because that's what they tried to do, and Simmons is just not good enough and frankly not an intelligent enough player, and doesn't have the instincts to play linebacker at a high level. But if you can put him in as like a dime backer, as a big nickel, as somebody that plays a lot in the slot, somebody that can play a lot of man coverage versus tight ends, I think Isaiah Simmons could be a pretty decent addition for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. If you're expecting him to come in here and be like a starting linebacker or a full-time starter at big nickel or in the slot or anything like that, I would say, probably not. I think he's probably a passing down kind of specialist type of defensive back that is kind of a bigger body. but he's definitely one of the more unique players in the National Football League. But, it's going to be interesting to see if the Pittsburgh Steelers like him enough to bring him in. So you be the GM for me down there in the comment section. Would you bring in Isaiah Simmons and have him join the Pittsburgh Steelers this year? Type S for sign or P for pass. For me, I would sign him for the vet minimum. Why not? See if he can be kind of that big nickel kind of dime backer and play that role on passing heavy downs that I think he could play in theory here in Pittsburgh. But let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pin question. Just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Ethos. And while I'm telling you about our sponsor today, make sure you get down there in the comment section and let me know if you would sign Isaiah Simmons if you were the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now let's have word from our sponsor today at Ethos. Guys, the summer before I started here at Chat Sports, unfortunately, my family lost my late grandfather. And as you tend to do when you lose someone close to you, begin to think about your own mortality and what would happen to the people dependent on you if something were to happen. With today's sponsor, Ethos, your family can be protected. Cassie and I are getting married soon, and shortly after that, I imagine we'll buy a house and start having some kids. If something were to happen to me, I want the last thing the people I love to worry about is being able to pay the bills, so I trust Ethos to keep them protected. As you probably already know, however, the process for obtaining life insurance can be super confusing or straight up annoying with how tedious the process can be. That's where our friends at Ethos come in. As of March of 2025, Business Insider named Ethos the #1 no medical exam instant life insurance provider. Ethos is an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy to protect your family's future in minutes, not months. There's no complicated process, and it's 100% online. There's no medical exam required, and you just answer a few health questions to get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos today. Get your free quote at ethos.com/NFL Daily. That's ethos.com. /NFL Daily to get your free quote today. Application times may vary. Rates may vary. A big thank you to Ethos for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. So this week, the Tennessee Titans finally parted ways with Treylon Burks, the bust receiver, former first-round pick out of Arkansas. And, of course, they drafted Treylon Burks to be the A.J. Brown replacement. Well, that certainly didn't work out in Nashville. And after a lot of injuries and a lot of, frankly, poor play, the Tennessee Titans have finally moved on from the former first-round pick. So now he has cleared waivers, and he is a free agent, free to sign with anybody that he pleases. And there's some people on Steelers Twitter and in Steelers media claiming that the Pittsburgh Steelers should go out and pick him up and, take a flyer on a former first-round pick that is a big body, is kind of a yak threat. He was compared very heavily to Deebo Samuel coming out. And you guys can take a look at his profile here. He's still only 25 years old. He's still over 200 pounds. So, he's somebody that has high effort in the run blocking department as well. Kind of seems like an Arthur Smith kind of guy, and he is a former first-round pick for a reason, guys. He has shown some legitimate flashes in his time in Tennessee. He's had some nice catches. He's had some nice run after the catch moments, but he's just really had a hard time staying healthy, especially over these last 2 years. He fractured his collarbone in training camp, and now he's been cleared to play, so there might be a team that ends up picking him up. But you guys can take a look here over the course of his career. That rookie season in 2022 was actually okay. 33 catches for over 440 yards and had a touchdown. Maybe a little bit underwhelming, but Tennessee certainly went into his sophomore season hoping that he was going to play a little bit better, and he just didn't. In fact, he played quite a bit worse, had a hard time staying on the field. And then last year in 2024, only 4 catches on the entire season. Once again, had a hard time staying healthy. So it's just not been a good ride to this point for Treylon Burks. And, I know that he's a former first-round pick, and I know theoretically he's got the size, and he's got an intriguing profile, and he's a former first-round pick, so people kind of think highly of him, and he's a big name. But I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers should bring in Treylon Burks, guys. I just don't know what he would bring to the Steelers offense that they don't already have in their wide receiver room as well as in their tight end room. Because Treylon Burks, frankly, guys, at this point, he would be like a manufactured touch, kind of screen threat type of guy. He doesn't run great routes. He has a big drop issue. And honestly, I like Ja'Whaun Smith more than I like Treylon Burks, all right? I think they have a similar level of athleticism, but Ja'Whaun is bigger. I think he's a better route runner than Treylon Burks is. I think he's got more reliable hands than he does. So, in this role inside the Steelers offense to be that kind of tight end, kind of bigger body pass catcher that's a yak threat, Jonnu Smith does quite a bit for that, quite a bit of that in the Steelers offense already. And then DK Metcalf does a lot of that in the Steelers offense as well. So I just don't know what Treylon would bring to the Pittsburgh Steelers that they don't already have. He's not bringing route running. He's not bringing a particularly good skill set as a hands catcher. I don't think he'd be able to develop a ton of chemistry with Aaron Rodgers because his hands are so untrustworthy. So even for the vet minimum, guys, I'm not really all that interested in Treylon Burks. I know he's a former first-round pick. I know that he's a big name. But personally, guys, if I have a choice between Isaiah Simmons and Treylon Burks, these two guys that could be brought in as former first-round picks, I'm picking Isaiah Simmons. Now, pick a receiver for me down there in the comment section. So the guy the Steelers did bring in a couple weeks ago was Isaiah Hodgins. Let me know if you'd rather have Hodgins or Burks in the Steelers locker room as kind of a practice squad type of player that could be elevated. Type IH for Isaiah Hodgins or TB for Treylon Burks. Honestly, Isaiah Hodgins' hands and his ability to get open to the short and intermediate levels of the field make me say Isaiah Hodgins because I just don't think Treylon would bring all that much to the Steelers offense, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. But let me know your answer down there in the comment section. So now let's talk about some tight end usage here, guys, because honestly, this has been, and really it has been since going into the season, what the Steelers want their identity to be is to be a lot of tight ends on the field using 12 and 13 personnel. And I think this week we're going to see more of that. And I think we're going to see more 13 personnel than maybe we have seen all throughout the 2025 season to this point. Because Calvin Austin III is likely out this week, because I don't think the Steelers have a super high level of confidence in Roman Wilson and Scotty Miller, I think this team, especially on early downs, might want to live in jumbo 13 personnel, which would mean Spencer Anderson, Darnell Washington, and probably Jonnu Smith or Pat Freiermuth is going to be in there as kind of like a third tight end, and they would be going out into wings. But then also I could see Arthur Smith get creative with the ways that he uses Jonnu Smith. I mean, last year with the Miami Dolphins, the Dolphins lined Jonnu up on the outside as a screen threat a lot. And I think that that's a skill set that the Steelers could tap into as long as Calvin Austin III is out of the lineup. So you could put him out there. You could line him up in different ways. You can put him in line in like a wing formation in 13 personnel, but you could also put him out wide. You could motion him before the snap. You could do some creative things with Jonnu Smith as kind of like a pseudo number 2 wide receiver while Calvin Austin III is out of the lineup. So I think that's something that we are going to continue to see, or I think we're going to see more of versus the Cleveland Browns, because they kind of base out of nickel. And I think the Steelers' hope is that they're going to do their very best to get them into base personnel, have them play a style of defense that they're not used to playing. And I think that that's really been the kind of game plan for Arthur Smith and this Steelers offense going back to earlier on in the season. I think in the early weeks they had Pat Freiermuth and they had Jonnu Smith kind of as the 2 tight ends that they wanted to play with, but I think they've kind of figured out that they need to play heavier and they need to play with Spencer Anderson and Darnell Washington more. And honestly, guys, unfortunately, that means that Pat Freiermuth is kind of in no man's land when it comes to the Steelers offense, because he doesn't really specialize in anything, all right? He's kind of the classic jack of all trades but master of none. He's an okay route runner, but he's not a terrific route runner like a Brock Bowers, for example. He's got good hands, but he doesn't have great hands, and he has very critical drops at times. And, he's an okay blocker where if he's blocking like an outside linebacker or even an off-ball backer or a DB, he can handle those blocking assignments. But if he's going up against a defensive lineman, forget about it. Pat Freiermuth can't handle those blocking responsibilities. So, Muth is not good enough as a blocker, and he's not good enough as a receiver or as a yak threat to have a legit role in Pittsburgh's offense, all right? Like, you look at the other tight ends in this group, in this tight end room, like, they've got legitimate roles. Spencer Anderson is their, like, elephant, big, sixth offensive lineman type. You got Darnell Washington, who's kind of another bigger tight end that can also catch the football but is an excellent blocker. And then you got Jonnu Smith, who's kind of more undersized. He's not much of a blocker like Muth, but he also brings a yak skill set to the table as kind of like a manufactured touch guy. Muth doesn't bring that to the table. So, when you use Darnell Washington and Spencer Anderson more, that just means automatically Pat Freiermuth is going to play less. And it stinks that the Steelers are paying him top 10 tight end money right now. And I just think as the season goes on, he's going to continue to get more and more faded out of this offense. And I think that sucks for Pat Freiermuth because I think he's a pretty decent player. It's just there's not a whole lot of places for him to fit inside this Steelers scheme right now. And I think because of that, I think Pittsburgh may be open to trading him. I like Muth a lot. I like him as a guy. I think he works hard. And by the way, once we've seen his snaps decrease, and we haven't heard a peep from him. So that's something that, I think he's a great locker room guy, all these different things. But, like, if a team comes calling and says, we'll give you, like, an early day 3 pick or a late day 2 pick for Pat Freiermuth, are the Steelers going to say no to that? I don't think so, man. Like, it would be nice to get his money off the books if you don't have a long-term plan for him. If he's not a big part of your offense and he can help facilitate a trade for, say, like another really nice wide receiver or maybe a left tackle to replace Broderick Jones if you need to do that by the deadline, I think that's something that the Pittsburgh Steelers would consider at this point because, at this point, guys, you don't really have a plan for him. I think the plan going into the season was we're going to use Muth and Jonnu on almost every single play, and we're going to give them both starter-level snaps. So that's what's going to justify giving both of them starter-level money. But that's just not the case right now, guys. And I think as the season goes on, we're going to see more and more of these jumbo packages. And in that space, I don't think there's a whole lot of room for Pat Freiermuth to get a heavy workload and put up the numbers that kind of justify the salary that the Steelers are paying him right now. So I like Muth a lot, but I do think that the Steelers are probably going to be open to trading him before the NFL trade deadline this year. And I think it's a legitimate possibility that Freiermuth could be traded before the deadline this season. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Is a Pat Freiermuth trade even a 1% possibility right now? Yes or no? All right. Yes, meaning yes, there's a chance that he could get traded. To no, meaning there's a 0% chance they trade Pat Freiermuth. He isn't going anywhere. All right, that's going to be it for today's edition of Steelers News and Rumors. Thank you guys for making it to the end with me here today. Tomorrow, Pons and I will be back live on Steelers Talk Live starting at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button to never miss any of our Steelers Talk content all throughout Week 6. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.